pray your league mates don't see this video if you want to win in 2025. I'm going to break down from start to finish my exact strategy for fantasy football drafts. Not only will you see the #1 draft strategy in action, but we'll take a look at ADP and I'll tell you who the best and worst picks are in each round. Let's start with round 1 and setting the foundation. But before we do, just a reminder, this was the exact video last year where I bullied you into reaching on Saquon Barkley, forced you to grab rookies like Neighbors and Bowers after round 4, and we avoided guys like Rachaad White early, taking league winners like Bucky Irving late instead, so you might want to listen up. The key is to have a plan and actually stick to it while customizing your approach to your own specific draft position. You'll have a choice of your first running back or wide receiver, but the most important thing this year is to take the best player available. Round 1 is loaded, but you'll want flexibility so you have a chance at big swings later if you play it smart. If you have a top 3 pick, the chalk starts with Ja'Marr Chase at the 101. He just posted 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns, and his chemistry with Joe Burrow is elite. With Cincy's defense still shaky, you're locking in volume, red zone work, and a weekly ceiling. Safe, sharp, no regrets. CeeDee Lamb is also a sneaky good pick. He's been fantasy's wide receiver 1 overall before, and Dak Prescott is back healthy. But this year's twist is that more running backs than usual are going early. That means forget 0 RB. The position dries up fast, so if you land Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs, that's your hero RB. They both get more passing work than Saquon, and either pick will let you hammer pass catchers in rounds 2 through 4 with total freedom. In the back half of the round, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown or Puka Nacua. Amon-Ra was second in red zone targets and could see even more volume if the offense condenses without Ben Johnson. And Puka led the NFL in target rate, so as long as Stafford's upright, pure usage makes him elite, but either of these picks will allow you to turn around and start round 2 with a bang. The riskiest picks in round 1 are Ashton Jeanty and Malik Neighbors. Jeanty's got the juice, but Vegas's O-line is a real concern, and Neighbors is pure talent, but tied to a shaky quarterback in a bad offense. Here's the bottom line. Take the best player available. If it's a running back, that's your anchor, and shift toward wide receivers in the next few rounds. If it's a wide receiver in the first round, then grab your RB1 by round 3 at the latest. In the first half of round 2, you'll see Brock Bowers as the first tight end taken. He's a smash talent, but round 2 is just too soon. You don't need to force tight end here. Devon Achane is the best pick in this zone, especially if he opened with a wide receiver. He led all running backs in receptions last year, finished top 10 in yards per touch, and that was with worse efficiency than his rookie year. That's how explosive his floor is. So after Achane, I consider the next guys a drop in tier. If you're going wide receiver, Nico Collins or Brian Thomas Jr. both carry late first round upside, so you're still getting some value there in the second. Later in the round, quarterbacks start showing up. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and I get it, but the value QBs come later, so don't force it. This is where Drake London becomes a killer pick. He saw 31 targets over his final 2 games last season, and that wasn't a fluke. It was the start of something, and he's clearly the best wide receiver in the back half of the second. But Chase Brown at the end of the round is the last player on the board that I consider a viable RB1. So the bottom line is resist the urge to reach a tight end and quarterback. Stick with Achane early or Chase Brown late for running backs, or just grab the highest value wide receivers. These picks will keep your foundation strong as the draft continues. If you're enjoying this video and all the free content so far this year, make sure you hit that subscribe button now. But real quick, if you're serious about actually beating your friends this year, go to fantasyaccelerator.com or hit the first link below. You'll get instant access to my 2025 draft kit, rankings, sleepers, busts, cheat sheets, the same system over 12,000 players used last year to dominate drafts. But here's the deal. I'm keeping the membership limited, so the real ones inside actually get my full attention. You'll see on the next page how many spots are left, and when it's full, that's it. So now's the time to lock in. At this point, I've ideally secured my top wide receiver and running back. In round 3, I'll focus on adding another wide receiver to ensure a strong, reliable core of weekly PPR starters. The wide receivers in the first half of the round all carry top-tier upside. Ladd McConkey is Justin Herbert's slot machine. He had 82 catches as a rookie. T. Higgins was 5th in points per game last year, even across from Chase. And Tyreek Hill is still an athletic freak with the possibility of a rebound. The second half of the round has Jackson Smith-Njigba, who's now the alpha target in Seattle, and Devontae Adams, who got 3 years from the Rams and should be a nice complement to Puka Nacua. Meanwhile, the running backs here are a trap. Kyren Williams will probably get volume, but his per touch numbers were weak. James Cook's 18 touchdowns inflated his fantasy numbers, and Breece Hall's coaches have already talked about using more of a committee approach this season, capping his volume. This is why I wanted that anchor back early, because the cliff is real. I'm still punting on these quarterbacks, but George Kittle is a name to circle at tight end here. He was the tight end 1 in points per game, finishing at the very top in non-PPR formats. Now with Ayuk still recovering and Debo off to Washington, he's Brock Purdy's most talented target. And he'll give you a more valuable positional advantage here than Bowers would have a round ago. So stick with the pass catchers here. McConkey, JSN, or Kittle would all go great with a solid wide receiver running back combo from your first 2 rounds. Round 4 is where the board starts to get messy. Outside of Joe Burrow, it's all running backs and wide receivers, but the wide receivers here come with major red flags. Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't just underwhelm last year, he struggled badly to separate. For a guy being drafted on name value, that's a scary foundation to bet on. And Terry McLaurin is coming off a touchdown-inflated season, but now Debo Deebo Samuel's in town, and McLaurin's already clashing with the team, so that's not the kind of energy I want to buy into. And DK Metcalf still has spike week potential, but Arthur Smith's offense in Pittsburgh is going to run the ball into the ground, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't exactly raise the ceiling. So I like to pivot to the backs. Kenneth Walker finished 12th in points per game last year and should benefit from Clint Kubiak's run-heavy system. He's a strong RB2 if you don't already have one. And Alvin Kamara is risky, but still sneaky good in PPR, second in receptions, and 5th in points per game last season, and if he stays upright, he pays off. But Omarion Hampton is my favorite dart throw here. Najee Harris has been banged up with that eye injury, and Hampton looks like the guy the Chargers want to lean on early. By the end of round 4, I want a foundation that can win me weeks. My rule of thumb is at least one running back, 2 wide receivers, and ideally a ceiling tight end or solid RB2. This is the last round where you can shape your starting lineup before the chaos starts, so make it count. But before we get back at it, you should know my mission is to make premium fantasy football information accessible to everyone. I'm here to save you time and make you sound smarter to your friends. But if for some reason you're not ready for the full draft kit yet, you can still get my top 150 rankings totally free at top150free.com. It's the exact list that I'm using to every draft this year, and odds are at least one of your league mates already has it. But if they do and you don't, you'll feel it by round 3. So grab yours now. It takes 30 seconds and it might save your whole draft. Round 5 is where you can start swinging for upside, and there's real juice here if you're willing to take a little risk. I'm not sure if I can do it, but Rashee Rice could miss time due to suspension, and if he reaches a settlement with the league, you're looking at Patrick Mahomes' potential wide receiver 1 in the 5th round. That's the kind of swing you can take if your top wide receiver slots are already locked up. But if you're like me and you want a cleaner floor, Devonta Smith is a rock-solid value here. Last year's dip in volume came from Philly's bizarre run-heavy script, but with a tougher schedule ahead, expect more dropbacks, more second-half passing, and more chances for Smith to pop. This is also the start of the breakout running back zone. TreVeyon Henderson already flashed in the preseason. He's explosive on film, and the Patriots drafted him to do exactly that. Ramondre Stevenson might be the incumbent, but Henderson is the future, and that takeover could happen fast. RJ Harvey is on a similar path in Denver. He's technically behind J.K. Dobbins, but the expectation is he flips that depth chart early. Both guys are home run bets with clear climb potential, exactly what you want in this range. I'm also on Courtland Sutton here as a clear wide receiver 1 on his team. He's a great target if you want to also move in on Bo Nix later like I do. But I'm not crazy about Zay Flowers. Baltimore has to give touches to Derrick Henry, Lamar himself, and their tight ends. Plus, he only scored 4 touchdowns last season, so he doesn't get the real pop-off volume that I'd like to see here. Mahomes is the one non-skill position name worth noting here, but I probably won't go there. He'll give you a safe floor, but the elite ceiling isn't what it used to be. He's finished as a back-end QB1 the last 2 seasons, so if you take him, it's for stability, not fireworks. Personally, I'd just rather build depth at running back and wide receiver here and take a shot on a quarterback later. The board still has value, so don't check out now. All right, I lied. Round 6 is actually where the chaos starts. The ADP starts to splinter, your league mates go rogue, and it's totally fair to start reaching on your guys. Early in the round, there are still some excellent wideouts. Tet McMillan has a catch radius the size of your living room and should vacuum up targets in Carolina. Calvin Ridley is already clicking with Cam Ward, who literally called him a top 5 NFL receiver, and George Pickens gives Dak Prescott something he hasn't had since Amari, a legit vertical threat opposite CeeDee Lamb. And at tight end, this is one of the last shots at ceiling. TJ Hawkinson could be the focal point, at least in some games, of Minnesota's passing attack, especially with their receiver room banged up, and Travis Kelce may be aging. I've been talking about him as a fade most of the offseason, but you still know the targets are coming. So if you missed out on that earlier tight end tier, this is your pivot point. Like, the real decision is the bet you're making as the Rice suspension comes down for late season games, not early season games. I'm mostly out on these running backs. Aaron Jones may start the year on top of the depth chart, but Jordan Mason was top 10 in both yards per touch and explosive run rate last year, so his role isn't safe. And Joe Mixon's even worse. He may not be ready for week 1, and I'm fading him across the board. Baker Mayfield at QB feels like a trap too. He overachieved on touchdowns last year, lost his offensive coordinator, and his receivers can't stay healthy. They're just better bets later. Bottom line, this round is about knowing who you like and grabbing someone who falls. If the consensus of the board feels off, trust your rankings, trust your eyes, and if you're staring down a long wait between picks, take your shot. Round 6 is supposed to get weird, so lean into it. My strategy will have built you a pretty good base by now, but since I like to wait on quarterbacks, now's the time to grab your value. Bo Nix is sitting here after a surprisingly strong rookie season, and with another year under Sean Payton, plus some upgraded weapons, he's got every shot to avoid that slow start we saw last year, and I genuinely think he could crack the top 3 in QBs if things break right. You're not drafting a flyer, you're drafting a potential league winner at a discount. The skill guys in this range are solid, if not flashy. Caleb Johnson looks like he'll step right into that Najee Harris role in Pittsburgh. He's a big body, downhill runner with clear volume upside. upside. Mark Andrews is still Mark Andrews, we think, and if the guy can stay healthy, Lamar's going to pepper him with targets. Chris Olave, Jacoby Myers, Jerry Jeudy, all have a shot to be their team's wide receiver one, and that's the name of the game here. Grab guys who are going to get looks and could break out if things click. But I'm passing hard on Brian Robinson Jr. Someone's more likely to take him earlier than me anyway with all of this trade talk. It's a little bit of uncertainty. Maybe he ends up on like Dallas or something crazy, but I'm not going there. And to be clear, I want no part of Tyrone Tracy. He might be fun, but that offense is still a mess, and Cam Scatabo is on his tail, so no thanks. Debo's an interesting one. Let's be honest, that elite after the catch magic hasn't looked the same lately, and in Washington's short passing game, not ideal. Chris Godwin's banged up, Jordan Addison suspended. There's just way too much risk here with these guys without the upside to justify it. So don't be afraid to go with your gut and pick your guys. Just make sure they've got the path that makes sense. Now, if you missed on Bo Nix earlier, don't panic. Rounds 8 and 9 are the real QB sweet spot. This is where the best values live. In round 8, you've got Kyler Murray and Brock Purdy, two guys who give you every week starter production without the premium price tag. Purdy's been top 10 in points per game for 2 years straight, and his coaches trust him completely. Kyler has been a back-end QB1 every season of his career with spike years, including inside the top 5. So he still brings real rushing upside, 4th in rushing yards among QBs last year and 5th in rushing scores. Either one is a great way to lock in stability without sacrificing upside. Beyond QB, Evan Ingram is still my favorite tight end sleeper in the entire draft. Sean Payton's history with volume-heavy tight ends, think Jimmy Graham, Jared Cook, fits Ingram perfectly. At wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall is turning heads in camp and getting real opportunity with Brandon Ayuk's sideline. Stephon Diggs might feel risky, but if his knee holds up and Drake May takes a leap, he could absolutely win you your league. And Travis Etienne isn't a guy I'm excited about, but he'll open the year as the lead back in a crowded Jaguars backfield, and that still has value in round 8, but I'm probably just gonna fade that backfield entirely. Speaking of fades, I want nothing to do with Cooper Kupp. His efficiency cratered last season, and Seattle is not a place where targets are going to be easy to come by. If he stays healthy, maybe there's a floor, but that's a big if. And I'm fully out on Quinshon Judkins. Legal issues, potential suspension, and a bad offense. That's 3 strikes for a rookie who's never played an NFL snap. By now, you should have all your starters locked in, hopefully including a strong flex, but if QB is still a hole in your roster, that's okay. Just start queuing up some names for round 9. That's the last of the reliable starters, and that's kind of when they normally go. I'm talking about one guy in particular in the next round who could still legit carry quarterback 1 overall upside. Dak Prescott is wildly underrated after last year's injury, but don't forget, in 2023, he was the QB4 in points per game and threw 36 touchdowns. That's the kind of upside that's still in play with the healthy CD, the addition of George Pickens, and one of the league's better offensive lines. Justin Fields is another sleeper here. He's finished as a top 10 quarterback in fantasy points per game in each of the last 3 years when he's been a starter, and if he gets even league average passing efficiency, he's a smash. Jared Goff is the floor play, I guess. No rushing juice. He was the QB6 last season and returns to a fully intact Lions offense, but more questions at O-line. But if you've already landed your quarterback, this is the round to scoop up some value and upside. Jordan Mason could flat out take over the Vikings backfield if Aaron Jones falters, and even if he doesn't, Mason's efficiency and pass catching keep him in the RB2 conversation. But the best pick in this round is Emeka Egbuka, who's showing off his first round pedigree already in Tampa, and especially if Chris Godwin isn't ready, Egbuka could slide into a high volume slot role right away. Tyler Warren is a pure breakout swing. If the Colts stabilize at quarterback, it looks like it is going to be Daniel Jones to start. He could be this year's surprise rookie tight end 1. And Zach Charbonnet might be the most valuable handcuff in fantasy. His 52 targets tied Bucky Irving and was more than guys like Saquon Barkley or Jonathan Taylor last year. So if Kenneth Walker misses time, Charbonnet becomes an instant league winner. The move here is simple. Make sure your starters are set and then fill your bench with players who don't just have roles, but paths to explosion. That's how good rosters turn into unbeatable ones. Round 10 is where you find some sneaky stashes, but you've got to be selective. Justin Herbert, Caleb Williams, and Drake May all have upside, but I'm not trusting any of them as my every week starter. They're best treated as streamers or injury insurance, not locked in QB1s. The running backs here, though, are quietly intriguing. Javonte Williams, Tank Bigsby, Najee Harris could all take over their backfields if things fall their way. We're looking for ambiguous running back situations. None of them are getting guaranteed touches early, but as the RB3 or RB4 on your bench, they're worth taking a swing. And if you're going to take some shots, take them on talent that could climb up the depth chart. But my favorite pick in this round is Darnell Mooney. He finished top 10 in both deep targets and yards per catch, and the Atlanta offense looked much more explosive once Michael Penix Jr. took over late last year. The volume could spike, but Mooney's still dealing with an injury, so you'll need to be patient. Still, with only Drake London ahead of him in the wide receiver room, there's a real chance that he pops once he's healthy. As for flyers, Michael Pittman and Josh Downs are both in the mix, but I lean down slightly, mostly because Daniel Jones is likely starting the year at QB for Indy, and the short area passing game sets up perfectly for Downs' skill set. And Keon Coleman is not someone you'll want to start every week, but in the right matchup, he could absolutely deliver a spike week. Round 11 is where you really start stacking depth. You're mining for breakout upside before you're forced to burn some picks on a defense and kicker. These aren't throwaways, though. Even if one of these hits, it can flip your entire season. At wide receiver, Jaden Higgins should step up right as Houston's wide receiver 2 and has a real shot to hold off Christian Kirk for that job. Brandon Ayuk is a classic stash. You'll wait for the injury to clear, but the ceiling is obvious, and Rashid Shaheed remains a big play weapon who can spike for 80-yard touchdowns and score on any given Sunday. The running backs here are more speculative. Tajay Spears and Jaden Blue both profile as stash and weight backs. They've dealt with some injuries already this summer, but both could carve out roles mid-season if the opportunity opens up. You're drafting them for what they might be in November, not what they are right now in September. Where round 11 really gets interesting is at tight end, because this is when the kind of late tight end run hits. Dalton Kincaid, he's my favorite swing. His production depends on how much the Bills actually feature him, but anyone tied to Josh Allen already has built-in ceiling. Sure, Dawson Knox might steal some work, but the talent edge in favor of Kincaid is real. Dallas Goedert is the safer pick. He's not flashy, but steady and locked into his role in the Philly offense. Jake Ferguson might be the best value of the bunch. He's Dak's go-to chain mover, and if the Cowboys offense rebounds, Ferguson becomes a reliable weekly starter with some touchdown upside. I'd stay away from Jonnu Smith. He was efficient in Miami, but Pittsburgh's system is completely different, and he'll be competing with Freiermuth for snaps and targets. And then there's Kyle Pitts, a story as old as time. You already know it. The hype, the athleticism, the never-ending disappointment. If you draft him, just know you're doing it for the meme, not for the points. Round 12 is where the cracks really start to show through. Most of the names here are dart throws, guys who will end up on waivers by week 3 unless something breaks their way. That said, there's a few worth stashing. Austin Eckler should handle most of the passing game work for Jaden Daniels, and if Brian Robinson is moved or demoted, Eckler could sneak back into the RB2 value conversation, especially in PPR. Trey Benson has reportedly added muscle and still looks explosive, so if Arizona shifts to a true platoon with James Conner, Benson could carve out real usage. And then there's Bashal Tutin, who had the fastest 40 at the combine and enters a wide open backfield, so he's kind of a pure upside stash. Ray Davis is another one to keep an eye on if James Cook slips. At quarterback, JJ McCarthy is a legit sleeper. He's stepping into a QB-friendly Kevin O'Connell system with elite weapons, and we've already seen this work before. Sam Darnold put up 4,300 yards in the same offense last year. McCarthy has more talent and better tools. As for fades, I'm off Rashad White again. He was overtaken by Bucky Irving last season, and now he's nursing a groin injury. Isaac Guerrero is nothing more than a CMC handcuff, so don't overthink it. You'll also start seeing kickers creep into ADP here, but don't bite. I'm holding off until round 16. At this point, there's no more starting backs, not even committee guys. It's mostly flyers, and that's when I pivot back towards contributors. Keenan Allen returns to the Chargers, where he's thrived for years. That role is way more viable than what he would ever have had in Chicago. Luther Burden is a decent bet if the Bears offense takes a leap under Ben Johnson. He could emerge as their wide receiver 2 if the scheme clicks. If you feel good about your depth, some people will tell you to take a great fantasy defense around this range. They can be a cheat code at times, but I prefer to stream week to week and kind of play that matchup game, but it can be a luxury to have one that you can just set and forget. That's why the Broncos or Eagles don't feel like huge reaches here. Probably not for me, but I wouldn't talk you out of it. They're at least going to give you consistent QB pressure and turnover upside, which is exactly what you want heading into September. Round 14 is mostly about insurance. Jalen Wright and Rico Dowdle both have defined roles on their teams, but sit behind more established starters. So Dowdle probably has a clearer path, but Chuba Hubbard is still in the lead in Carolina, and Wright is stuck behind Devon Achane in Miami's pecking order, so neither is a plug-and-play guy, but they're injury bets. Hunter Henry is the one real bright spot in this round. He quietly finished top 15 in points per game and ranked 7th in red zone targets. With Drake May likely leaning on him as that safety valve, Henry could easily be a matchup-based streamer or early season surprise. The rest are mostly dartboard QBs. Tua's always one hit away from missing time. Penix and Bryce Young are bench stashes at best. There's no real reliable upside here, but you might luck into a good week if the matchup is right. If your league still forces you to draft a defense and kicker, this is the time to do it. Your last 2 picks. Some players might reach early. Don't be those people. Kickers especially offer the smallest edge in all of fantasy. Last year, fewer than 3 points per game separated 1 through 12, so just take someone accurate, tied to a good offense, and don't stress. Defenses can swing matchups, but they're super volatile, so if you don't land a top-tier unit, stream by matchup instead. Really, the only thing that matters is turnovers, so you want quarterbacks who are going to throw the ball a lot and take sacks. We covered a lot today. Use this round-by-round strategy to crush your draft and build a winning team, but make sure you hit subscribe so I can help you win your league.